Taken. He wanted a cure. He found the Creator.
Chapter 14. Betrayed. The bright light of sun's peak peered relentlessly through the folds of the tent. Swirls of red and gold danced before Tubal-Cain's eyes, spinning wildly out of control. Ah! Tubal-Cain groaned as he grabbed at the thick coverings and pulled them over his head, only partially blocking the rays. My head, he mumbled, and lifted himself clumsily to his feet. By Adama's blood, I will punish the fool who prepared that drink of power. My, a lilting voice said from the tent's entrance. Those are strong words for a man's only. Oh, Mother, I didn't mean. You did mean it, Zillah chided as she set the large pot of steaming brew on the warming stone. But hasty words are often misguided. You know very well the drink of power does not harm when its essence is consumed with respect. I would think that fully formed men and those benign Elohim would know better, celebration or no. Such behavior is an offense to the Ancient One. Zillah paused as she noticed the slight slump in her son's large muscular frame. Never mind that now. A cup of ketu will set you right. Tubal-Cain smiled gratefully at his mother as he dipped a small cup into the pot and sipped the hot liquid. She was still a woman pleasing to the eye, even if she was past the fresh bloom of first age. It was easy to see where Naamah derived her great beauty, and a pity his father overlooked it. You are most gracious, Mother, Tubal-Cain said. That I am. Zillah replied with satisfaction. She began to choose a wife. She would keep things in order, including that temper of yours, or at least let the Sabasi come and fix things up a bit. Mother, please, do not start. You know Father has not given me permission to wed yet. Besides, Naamah helps me when she can, and where is Naamah? I'm hungry. She usually leaves a meal for me at Son's birth. Ask your father, Zillah said flatly, frowning as she leaned against the large beam in the center of the tent. I'm asking you, Mother. Don't you remember? Or has the drink of power made you senseless too? She left with Benai Elohim Shemjaza. She spent last sun's sleep with him, Zillah said. What? Tubal-Cain rubbed his head absently as he tried to remember last eve. Lamech's temper, the Benai Elohim, the communion meal, all passed before his eyes in a blur. He remembered the drink of power, much of it, and the smoke of heaven, the talking. Oh! He remembered now Naamah leaving with Shemjaza. What had he been thinking? Why didn't he say anything? I tried to stop your father. I tried to make him wait, Zillah said, rubbing her cheek tenderly, and was not treated kindly for it. Why? Why would he do that? There has been no ceremony, no consecration. Naamah will be cast aside, and she was promised to Lita. Tubal-Cain tossed the empty cup aside and hastily threw his bright red robe over his undercovering. I can't imagine what the families must be saying. We will be a byword and a... Now, son, be strong and wise. Zillah tied the golden sash of the firstborn around his waist. I have the golden sash of the firstborn around his waist. I have covered the matter as best as I could, but Lita is beginning to ask questions. Just go see your father. If he agrees to do a ceremony quickly, we may yet spare your sister's name. Yes, Mother. Tubal-Cain rushed from his tent toward his father's larger dwelling. That's my boy, Zillah said with a smirk. Time to teach the fox. Tubal-Cain stormed past the Sabasi scurrying in and out his father's dwelling and scowled until his face crinkled like a raisin. Must stop, Father. Must stop, Father. The thoughts intensified his aching head. Tubal-Cain thrust aside the fur-lined curtains and bounded into his father's tent without permission, looking more like Lamech than ever. Father, you must retrieve Naamah this instant and give her a proper ceremony, Tubal-Cain ordered boldly. The Sabasi who had been attending Lamech dashed from the tent without a word. Lamech looked up slowly from his bowl of figs, glowering at Tubal-Cain. If you weren't my son and a firstborn, Lamech stuffed another plump fruit into his mouth, I would teach you what it means to disturb my meal with foolishness. Father, Tubal-Cain stammered, raising Lamech's familiar temper ready to flare. I meant no offense, it's just that... Yes, snapped Father Lamech, still tearing into the fruit one after the other, not bothering to wipe the sweet juice dribbling down his chin. It's just what? Well, honored one, Tubal Khan said more diplomatically, I know the arrangement with the Benai Elohim Samjaza is one of great importance, but Father, why have you not consummated the union with the proper ceremony? What will the tribesmen say? How can they respect our family when your daughter is treated like a common Nuta? Father Lamech exploded, but not in the way Tubal Khan's laughter rocked his entire frame. My boy, Lamech said, patting Tubal Khan on the back. There's nothing wrong with the company of a Nuta. Lamech laughed again at the shocked expression on Tubal Khan's face. Ah, never mind that now. When you take a wife, you will understand. As for your sister Naima, she is no Nuta. Yes, I may have acted with haste, but such a move was a necessity. Tubal Khan, you see, I can tell when a man is ready to move, and that Samjaza was ready. By Dama's blood, if I had not acted swiftly, he surely would have found pleasure with another, and we would not have now, would we? But Father, Mother said, so that's it. Zilla's mouth has been running and twisting like the mighty Pishon again. Tubal Khan, haven't I taught you that women are not to be trusted in these things? But, listen, my son, I have my arms around the matter. Naima will have a ceremony. Good, Father, I knew you had the wisdom of the ancient in as soon as she conceives. What? Tubal Khan, Lamech barked sharply, calm yourself. Tubal Khan pressed his lips together, forcing himself to be silent and obey his father's command, just as he had as a childling. There was no other way. The Benai Elohim Samjaza is no fool. He had no intentions of marrying a daughter of Eve who could not produce him a son. Tubal Khan's mouth formed a perfect O, though the sound never came out. Instead, he stared intently at his father. God would not allow himself to be bound in a fruitless union as an ordinary man. Of course, he would want to be sure. Now you understand, my son. Swift action had to be taken. It was absolutely necessary. A man must be flexible in these matters, and I'm not concerned. Naima will be fruitful as her mother was. She is not afflicted with the sickness. She will have her ceremony, the most extravagant any daughter of Eve has ever seen. Then the will of the Ancient One will be done. No harm will come of it. You see, my boy, the Ancient One has given us a mind, Lamech said as he tapped it, and we must use the good sense he gave us if the prophecy is to be fulfilled. Father, forgive my foolishness. Tubal Khan grinned as he kneeled to honor him. No matter, my son. Lamech gave Tubal Khan a hand up. But I will need your help. The tribesmen will soon begin to talk. Some of the women are already asking questions, and they will not be put off much longer by our excuses. We will have to explain Naima's presence in Samjaza's. So it is true, then? Lita stumbled into the room. Lamech turned to face the new intrusion. I would not be so bold if I were you, Lita. His coarse voice was smooth with contempt. Tubal Khan moved silently to the corner of the room, too familiar with his father's low tone. Lamech was most violent, not when yelling and screaming curses, but in these quiet moments of measured hate. Lita stopped when he noticed Tubal Khan's retreat. Father Lamech, Lita stammered as he dropped to one knee and bowed his head. I meant no offense, but I just came from the Benai Elohim Samjaza's tent and... And what? Lamech snapped. Well, the one called Hazazel, told me you gave Naima to Samjaza, and then as I was coming to see you, I heard you. I heard you tell Tubal Khan. Lita pointed at Tubal Khan, who remained in the corner of the tent. Please, most honored one, tell me there has been confusion on my part. Surely you would not do this thing to your faithful Sabasi. Lamech stared at the pitiful figure, kneeling at his with tears brimming in his eyes. Get up, you fool! A faithful Sabasi would never bother his master with nonsense. As Naima's father, you know very well that I have the right to give her to whom I please, and it pleases me to give her to the Benai Elohim Samjaza, a man befitting her great beauty, who can offer her the moon and the stars in return, not just a life of scuffling and scurrying. But you gave me your word I was her intended. Everyone knows I was her intended, Lita said, stumbling to his feet as he backed away in disbelief. You can't. I can, Lita, and I have. Lamech sneered as he stalked toward Lita. And if you have the ancient one in you at all, you had better not interfere with my plans. But you promised. You gave your word. Silence, you fool. Lamech slapped Lita squarely across the cheek. Lita held his cheek, unable to find the words that should have come. If you ever dishonor me again, I will make you a slug among men. I will put you down so low, no son of Cain will ever think of allowing his daughter to marry one such as you. Lamech gave Lita a final push that sent him tumbling out of the tent and crashing into the water pots just outside the door. Now get out of my sight! Lamech yelled so loudly a few elders came out of their dwellings to see the cause. Of the commotion. Lita slowly lifted himself up as droplets fell like tears from his soaked garment and dotted the muddy earth. With head hanging and shoulders drooping, he cringed while the elders snickered at the object of Father Lamech's latest tirade. Lita, quick, come this way, a voice whispered. Lita raised his head. Father Lamech's wife, Zillah, was motioning to him. She held out a clean, dry sabasi garment and a large blanket. Grateful, Lita followed her into the smaller tent next to Father Lamech's dwelling. Father Lamech returned to his bowl of figs. Oh, yes, some jaza. Tubal Khan still lingered in the corner. Tubal Khan, sit, Father Lamech commanded, pointing to the space opposite him. Have some, please. Tubal Khan devoured the fruit, licking his fingers between bites. Eat up, enjoy yourself, Lamech said, grinning broadly. Some jaza will go through with the marriage to Naima, I'm sure of it. But in the meanwhile, we have another situation. What troubles you, Father? The ceremony of the bearer must be stopped. Stopped? A fig fell from Tubal Khan. He grabbed it before it hit the floor and tossed it back into his mouth. I know you're upset with the High Council's decision. We all are, but Great Mother Eve has the word of the elders. Enoch is the bearer. How can it be stopped? Great Mother Eve is surely cursed and full of the sickness, even though she tries to conceal it. I have my sources. She grows weaker with the sleeping of each son, and the tribe of Cain will not be subject to her deceit any longer. Obviously, her mind is twisted. If it was not, how could she not see the hand of the Ancient One on you? It was you who brought back the Elohim, the sons of God. What did Enoch do? Nothing. I tell you, are nothing compared to the revelation the Ancient has given you. Why, the union between the B'nai Elohim, Samjaza, and Naamah is the fulfillment of the prophecy. From their seed, a tribe of redeemed men, free of the curse and full of the Ancient One's essence, will flourish and fill all Adama. And you, my son, deserve all the credit. This is your birthright. It is your destiny to atone for Father Cain and bring honor to our tribe. Why else would he protect Father Cain's life for so long, if not to restore him? By Adama's blood, I will not let that Enoch swindle your birthright from you. No, it is the hidden to restore the tribe of Cain and all the sons of Adam. But how, Father? Tubal Khan stood up and paced the room. What can be done now? Stop the ceremony. Appeal to the people directly. If the High Council makes a rule that is unjust, the people have a right to know about it. I'm sure if they had the chance to decide, they would not choose Enoch, now would they? Perhaps not, Tubal Khan said. Many of the people prefer me over Enoch, I know that. They can see my strength and skill as a hunter, and truly we have fed the people using the wisdom of the Ancient One to tame the wild plants and animals. He stopped pacing abruptly. It might work. Just before the offering is made, everyone will be gathered. All the firstborns will be presented just before the new bearer is honored. It might work. Yes, that's it, Tubal Khan. Father Lamech's craggy voice was rich with approval. Now you're using the mind of the Ancient One. Tubal Khan quickly adjusted his outer cloak, making sure the gold and red banners of the firstborn were prominently displayed. Most honored Father, Tubal Khan said with a quick bow. Be at ease, I will fulfill the will of the Ancient One. With you, my son, my mind is as free as the wind. Father Lamech smiled again as he filled his pipe and set the crushed leaves afire. I knew we could count on you. Father Cain will be most pleased. Tubal Khan left the tent, fueled by the warmth of his father's praise. Lamech now, just never you mind. Zillah consoled the dripping servant as she hung a blanket from the rafters. Get behind there now, quickly, Lita, and give me those wet clothes. Such a shame Lamech is treating his best Sabasi this way. Doesn't have the sense of the Ancient One. Aye, sister, 'tis true. Ada, Lamech's other wife, entered the tent and grabbed Lita's wet clothes off the floor. Saw the whole thing, heard it no less, all the way from Jubal's tent 2 lengths over. That Lamech is without bounds. Someone should teach him the respect of the Ancient One, and treating his own daughter like that. A common Nuta. Why, the men are already calling her name of the Nuta and making bets on who will be next. Oh, it's just a shame. Oh, a pitiful groan on the other side of the blanket, and Zillah's muffled sobs stopped Ada's frank telling of the day's news. Oh my, I am sorry, Zillah. Didn't mean to be so, well. Ada rushed to her side and dabbed Zillah's tears with the sleeve of her cloak. Small remnants from the morning's meal stuck to Zillah's face. Oh dear, I'm sorry, sister. She tried to pat away the mess, but when the beginning of the red welt formed on Zillah's cheek, she left off rubbing and patted her shoulder instead. You know I love Naima as if she were my own. It's just a shame. That Lamech will bring it's just a shame. That Lamech will bring a curse on us. All is forgiven, sister. You speak the truth. Ada rubbed her tender cheek. Lamech has caused us nothing but pain, and now he has betrayed Lita as well. The elders will repeat the tale of Lita the fool for all ages to come. Something could be done. You are wise women indeed, Lita said quietly, but Father Lamech is a great man, though much evil rests in his heart. What could be done to one such as him? Yes, you see the difficulty in the matter, Zillah said calmly. He is an angry one. The fierceness of Cain. 'Tis a shame that nothing short of death would stop him. Death? Lita raised his voice, surprised. But only the Ancient One has the authority to kill a man. Indeed, but did not the Ancient One say, a man who sins shall surely die. If any man has sinned, it is Father Lamech. 'Tis true, sister. He has sinned against the Ancient One and his own family with his rebellious acts. Ada says, shaking her head, 'tis a shame someone so twisted should live. But Father Lamech is strong as the cedars of Avonland, and as cunning as the fox. How could his essence be taken from him? Lita asked. Zillah leaned in close and spoke in hushed tones. Someone strong and true could do it, if they acted boldly. Then all would be restored. The insult to you would be avenged, and your honor affirmed by the tribe. Father Lamech is strong, but not invincible. Why, even Naima's wedding to the B'nai Elohim Simjaza might be prevented if only someone was bold enough to stop Father Lamech. Zillah crinkled her nose as a foul scent wafted through the tent. You need to toss your old garment, Lita. It's too spoiled for washing. I will take care of it, but about Father Lamech, if someone were so bold, how could it be done? That Lamech is a cunning one. He must be caught unaware. It is the only way, for no one is swifter at a challenge than he. Not even Tubal Khan has been able to best his father. But if someone were to challenge him when he's distracted and full of strong drink, they could best him. Lita, Zillah, and Ada talked a great while. Finally, Lita gathered his old damp garment into his arms and headed back to the Sabasi quarters to help with preparations. He stepped lightly, not with the tread of one forlorn and rejected, but with her possessed. Smiling slightly, he greeted them cheerfully and threw his old garment into the trash before joining the work. Lita covered his nose. There was that smell again, like decaying flesh. One of the Sabasi must have left the hunter's catch in the heat too long. Obviously, someone had already reprimanded the servant's error and tossed it as rubbish. Chapter 15. The Tree of Life. Anami trekked up the embankment, high above the mighty currents of the river Pashan crashing below. He was close to its source now. Just a few spans more, and he would reach the churning mash water exploding from the depths of Adama until it flowed from the highest peak of the 7 hills. Steam rose around the surrounding vegetation, luxuriously green and nourished from the warm mist. Anami inhaled the heavy aroma so close to that of heaven's realm. Ah, that's better. With each intake, Anami forgot the acrid stench of the fallen that had begun to permeate all Adama. Anami took a few more steps and paused. Even though Anami could have flown in his spirit form, he chose to go on foot. Azam warned him to be discreet, and he took his friend's advice. Other watchers spotted him, and the view from the summit was spectacular. The lush valley on the other side of the 7 hills hosted 4 clear streams, which surged down the rocky hillside and watered the plain below. Eden was breathtaking. Ha! Anami laughed quietly, amazed he had arrived this close to the Garden of Eden, unchecked. It was even funnier the sons of Adam could not find their ancestral home. Why, some of the tribes are no further than a day's journey on foot. Anami stifled a giggle at the irony and started downhill, careful not to disturb the stillness there. Surprisingly, he found the landscape familiar. Anami stopped again to study a bright patch of flowers growing unhindered beneath the shade of a large sequoia. He pressed one of the petals to his face and inhaled deeply. The scent heightened his senses. Delicious. The Dotanus mal, the most desirable blooms in the Garden of God. But the beautiful flower had never had that effect on him before. It isn't the flower. Someone is here. Anami swung around. Hummingbirds flitted cheerfully from petal to petal, and a flurry of golden speckled butterflies swirled around his head briefly before they realized his sweet aroma produced no nectar. Anami shook off the strange sensation and kept moving toward the valley. He was almost halfway. Swap! Anami fell backwards, instinctively drawing his bow before he hit the ground with a thud. Stunned, Anami scanned the area as he rubbed his forehead vigorously. What was that? There were no men, no animals, no other watchers, and no fallen either. No, I would have noticed their scent long ago. Anami stood up again, slowly. He assumed the first position, both knees bent in a forward lunge, arms crossed in front of his chest, hands closed tightly with his fingers pressed together like a dagger. Anami inhaled and exhaled slowly, focusing, staring straight ahead, still as the 7 hills themselves. Then in one fluid movement, swat! Anami thrust his arms forward with all his strength. Ah! Anami cried out and drew back his arms as sharp pinpoints of pain surged up and down his limbs, but not before he saw it. The plush landscape, his arms vigorously as his essence strengthened once more. This time, Anami knew what to do. Instead of attacking, he relaxed. Gently, he raised his hand and slowly, very slowly, pressed the air in front of him. His hand tickled as it blended, wavered, and then disappeared in front of him. Anami followed his hand. Halt, Elohim! Boomed a voice so long and loud, Anami's frame shook from the force of it. Anami looked up, took a few steps back, and gazed heavenward again. Before him stood the cherubim, man-like face stretched for at least 10 cubits. Downy softness dripped and surged from those great arms, bathing him in ethereal light as Anami bowed with respect for the ancient's covering guardian. Greetings, most honored one. I am Anami of the Beloved's Guard, Anami said, embarrassed. He was trembling. I need to... Onami! Called the hollow voice, sounding more like a roar than anything. Go! The cherubim said as he pointed toward the cultivated maze of flowering shrubs and trees behind him. To the tree of life, say behind him. To the tree of life, say nothing, do nothing, only enter the gate. Anami nodded reverently. Azam was wrong this time. I didn't have any problems with the cherubim. It was like he was expecting me. Anami walked slowly. Huge branches dangled overhead, intertwining and clasping each other like caring hands cradling a newborn. A pleasant breeze pushed through the leaves and surrounded him with its heady perfume. Jasmine, gardenia, honeysuckle, and countless rows of the sweetest blooms decorated the path in an epiphany of color. All at once, he could see it, feel it, taste it, become it. Anami closed his eyes and inhaled deeply again. He sighed. Just like home. He opened his eyes quickly as something brushed against him. Oh! Anami took a few full birds and animals frolicking playfully. There were people. Many, many people. I thought the Garden of Eden was empty. They ignored his presence completely. Anami lifted his hand to wave at them, to greet them. Then he remembered the words of the cherubim. Say nothing. Do nothing. Say nothing. Do nothing. Only enter the gate. Anami lowered his hand and leaned backward as he dodged a man who came running out of the thicket, followed by a group of laughing children chasing him. Why, that looks just like... It couldn't be. But it was. Anami was sure of it. Tall, slender, thick hair, twisted like ropes. Anami swung around to get a better look. That is him. How did Abel get here? That son of Adam was killed in the first age. I'm sure of it. My knowledge of Adam's lineage is not false. Another figure darted onto the pathway in front of him. He was gathering fruit from a large tree, growing in the humongous trunk of the clustered vine-like roots, bound together as one tight cord. The man's perfectly proportioned frame was sturdy, but graceful too, and his symmetrical features rivaled that of any Elohim. He looked up from his task with brown eyes focused and stared straight at Anami. Anami froze in his tracks. Adam? How? Can he see me? Anami waited without moving. Adam gazed at him for a few moments, then went back to his work, finally picking the basket up and hauling it over his head as he moved away from the tree and deeper into the maze. He can't see me. Neither could Abel. None of them can see me. Anami shuddered in the warmth of the garden. But why did the cherubim tell me not to say or do anything? They can't. He caught his breath and moved closer to the tree. So this is it. This is what the cherubim guard at risk of peril to their own spirits. Anami approached the tree cautiously and marveled at it. Ripe fruit glistened from that tree like the stars of heaven, containing the essence of everything that was and that will ever be. The fruit, brilliant hues of ruby red, blue sapphire, and the purest gold, hummed and pulsated like the mighty quasars of the dark infinite expanse, leading the way home. They dangled precariously from long branches of light, winding and twisting downward to its source, a bright light, the color of fiery rain. Anami laughed with glee. Yes, the tree of life, of course. I wonder. Anami looked quickly to the left and to the right. The cherubim, already back in position at the top of the 7 hills, was paying him no mind. Well, it couldn't hurt. Curious, Anami transformed and assumed a body of flesh. Shivering as he got used to the cold suit, he looked again. Just what I thought. It was just a tree. A beautiful one, full of delectable fruit, but still, just a tree. They can't see it in this form. The way home, it is hidden to them. Anami transformed once more, returning to his spirit form. He quivered, but not from any natural sensation. His body pulsed, assuming the rhythm of the tree, the rhythm of life itself. This gate was different. He had used the gate at Mount Arata many times before, and the gates on countless other planets and countless other star systems like this one. He was accustomed to the familiar vibrations as he left one dimension and returned to the other. The lights, the loss of everything, and then the return. But this was different. It was as if he could see every possibility, every hope, every dream, every thought he might ever think as he lost himself in the power of that tree. For a moment, he could feel the Ancient One in the beginning, before the dawn of the cosmos, and the echo of the universe resounded for the first time. He saw the ecstasies of the galaxies birthing planets, black holes, and the will of the Ancient One, always guiding and expanding with force. And something else, something familiar but different. It was the one mind, but stronger than Anami had ever felt him before. In him, he could perceive the entirety of everything that was, is, and was to come. And with him, an overwhelming sense of love. Anami could feel that love, know his love. A calm, all-consuming heat filled every core of his being, warming him from the pit of his stomach and radiating outward. Now the immense fields of heaven rolled before him. The melodies of the forest cried out with glee as he soared through the memories of it all, like a falcon released from its cage at last. Anami laughed and giggled and then laughed again with a joy deeper than anything he had ever known. Then he heard a sound. Someone was laughing with him, someone familiar but far in the distance. The soft, high pitch of bells jingling was this voice, tinkling beside him. He looked for the sound, searched for the one making it as he sped along, faster and faster. The voice ran ahead, laughing. He tried to keep up. He came closer and closer, almost, yes, he could see now. Tafara was holding out her hands to him, laughing. He reached out to grasp her, and then he fell. Anami tumbled out of the fullness of the anti-void onto the smooth pavement, startling a few passers-by. He stood and rubbed his head, still dazed by the crossing, and gathered his bearings. He thought he would have a distance to travel to reach the great general's compound, but his concerns were unnecessary. The massive entrance to the complex was just ahead, dressed smartly in the full regalia of the host, and nodded. "All is well, good Benai," one of them said courteously, but not before giving Anami the once-over. The other guard shrugged his shoulders and gave Anami a curious glance, and then whispered something to his companion. "I might be a little disheveled, but does he have to be so rude?" Anami examined himself and gasped. No wonder! Instead of his usually pearly essence, he was glowing, no, practically radiating every hue of the spectrum. I don't know what," Anami called out to the guards, stammering as he struggled to come up with an explanation for his appearance. Just then another of the host appeared, a senior member of the higher ranks from the looks of his uniform. His white garment was simple and unadorned, except for a collar of gold, embedded with an intricate design of emeralds and rubies. "Commander Anami of Alpha Company?" the lieutenant general asked crisply. "Yes, Benai." Anami gave the customary salute for superiors. "Come with me," the Benai said with a curt nod. "The general is waiting for you." General Michael peered out the massive arched window facing the trail to his secluded ranch. His quarters were toward the southernmost part of the grounds, past the stables, barracks, and training pavilions. General Michael's large, callous hands pressed against the thin crystal surface, leaving telltale smudges of his presence for the cleaning crew to erase once again. He should be here any point now, the beloved said so. The general examined his prized possessions, touching them more as he paced and considered the outcomes. Another conflict, another rebellion to crush, maybe not. The great law had been compromised, certainly. That was a given, but the consequences of the breach, well, that was not always so clear-cut, especially with the beloved presiding over the High Council now. He saw things differently. The general's hand hovered over a small but deceptively heavy trophy, a special gift from the Ancient One, for service in the Great War. It was unmatched in beauty as far as its construction, but its uniqueness did not lie in its appearance. It was engraved with one simple word: compassion. One touch of that object could communicate an eon of experience, even experiences one did not want to remember. The general hesitated, then reached out and touched it. The four walls of his office disappeared before his eyes, even though in actuality nothing had changed. Nothing but the general moved across the vast space from one person's perspective to another's. This special gift from the ancient was given to him because of his function. As the highest ranking officer of the host, second in command only to the beloved, the Ancient of Days had given him this gift called empathy, granting him the extraordinary ability to feel what its knowledge had often stayed his hand when he would have crushed his opponent. Now his thoughts beheld Captain Samjaza singing. Then came knowing, as hard and solid as the object in his hands. "Excuse me, General," a voice called. The sharp tap on his door broke his concentration, severing the connection to Captain Samjaza. His eyes burned like fire, then cooled. "Speak." General Michael released the trophy and walked to his desk. "Commander Anami is here." "Send him in." Michael almost grinned when he saw Anami's telltale aura. He was excited, intimidated, confident, and hesitant all at once, still full of the first flames of creation. Michael sighed. Just as we were. Such promise. Anami, please, no need for formalities, the general said, extending a hand as he waved the commander to the seat beside him. Now, General said, making himself comfortable, I believe you have news of Adama and Captain Samjaza. Please proceed with your report. Not a ripple stirred in the crystal sea. Its fathomless depths shone like a vast emerald mirror as it reflected the light emanating from the great throne. On it, the beloved sat, shrouded in jasper as transparent and brilliant as the mount of the Ancient One. His arms and legs were encased with flames of fiery sardinia, as red as rubies, the elders surrounding him, waiting. Finally, one stood and spoke. My lord, the elder said as he rose and bowed, what shall be done regarding his confirmation has come? It is as I spoke, but all has not been accomplished. What do you speak of, my lord? The outcome is not sure. Possibilities remain. Therefore, we will watch and wait. But, my lord, what of their conduct? It is reprehensible. Even the slightest infraction of our way is reprehensible to the Ancient One, yet appeals to the greater law. For now, the highest law protects Samjaza and his men. No action shall be taken against them while possibilities remain, yet an account must be kept. Indeed, my lord, I will send word to General Michael. Anami walked slowly down the country path away from the main ranch house where he'd met with General Michael. He passed by a group of privates taking the stallions out for their scheduled exercises. On any other occasion, he would have taken the opportunity to ride with joy. Today, he ignored them. The meadow and the bubbling brook surrounding him provided little comfort for the troublesome thoughts churning in his head. Samjaza has fallen, yet we do nothing. It is not reasonable. What of the men under his influence? How many are there? What if more succumb to the lure of the furious ones because of his leadership? Why don't we do something? It's just not reasonable. Anami walked faster, kicking a few loose pebbles off the path onto the manicured lawns. The main entrance was just ahead. He was sure his return gate would still be there. I wonder what Delmar and Azam will think. Of course, we will not act, since that is what the beloved commands. Still, Chapter 16. Heaven's Fire. The moon pierced the darkness of sun's sleep, illuminating the sons and daughters of Adam gathered below. Clan after clan packed into the crowded plains of the Seti of Adama. Reds, greens, and golds took the prominent places near the center of the wide arc surrounding the platform. Hundreds of men labored to erect the solemn structure used for the sacrifice. Some elders said it had been at least 80 years from the time when men began to call upon the name of the Ancient One until its complete. Enoch didn't know for sure. It was finished before the time of his birth, and before him, no man bothered to record anything. Enoch shifted uncomfortably in the stiff garments Dina insisted he'd wear this eve, tugging at the bright banner on his chest. They were beautiful. He'd never seen a finer covering on anyone. Dina had been ever since the death of Great Father Adam. It contained the colors of every clan, a symbol of the unity he hoped he could restore among the families. Enoch yanked the banner lying across his chest with both hands, testing its strength. Fine work. If we were joined as tightly, nothing could harm us. Enoch looked over at Dina, sitting proudly hand, and smiled. Dina beamed and patted his hand. She was especially joyful this Sun's Eve. Her hard work had not been in vain. Praise the light. I am the bearer of the seed, just like she said I would be. The drums began, telling the story again. Enoch tapped impatiently on his thighs. He thought about what would happen next. Soon the firstborns would be called to the platform, one by one, to present the sacrifice for their clan. Then, after all had gone before him, Great Mother Eve would call him to say the prayer of atonement for all the sons and daughters. Enoch felt the weight of their anticipation, their anxiety, and their hope. Would the Ancient One show himself this time? Would they hear his voice? Enoch wondered too. And something more. Would the fallen come? Enoch drummed his fingertips lightly on his thigh again, keeping time with the incessant rhythm of the drums as he searched the crowd. "Enoch?" one whispered, leaning toward Dina. "Are you well?" She looked him over, straightening his banner. "I have Alru." She pulled out a small pouch tied to her waist. "If you feel unwell." "Just a touch of nerves is all. I'm fine, really." Enoch gave her a quick hug and smiled reassuringly. "Good." Dina turned her attention to reenacting the first sacrifice. Enoch shifted on the wooden bench, feeling chilly despite his warm garment. He rubbed his arms vigorously as if he could brush the nagging sensation in the pit of his stomach away with the motion. It didn't help, so he closed his eyes, praying, "May the Ancient One be with us." Dry heat spread through his limbs. He rocked slightly as energy surged through him. He knew this, but never had it happened so quickly. He felt the connection with the One Mind almost before he finished the thought. He relished this oneness. Gone was the nervousness, the anxious thoughts, the foreboding. Now there was just peace, an abundance of it, and 3 words which: listen, speak. Although he heard no audible voice, he heard the words clearly. Enoch waited for the heat to subside, the energy to dissipate, but it didn't. It held him like a firm hand, quiet and still. "Alia que tu selia meso. Alia que tu selia meso. Elkina asome tu bisi." Great Mother Eve's voice lifted above the pounding drums and the hum of the people. She used the formal tongue of Adam, for all knew it, and every man, woman, and child, the flesh of her flesh, hushed. "May the Creator let every firstborn come now with the sacrifice for his clan." Great Mother Eve stepped back from the center of the platform and sat on one of the benches in the rear to watch the processional. A group of young men wearing white banners came first. Normally, Enoch would have presented himself with this group, as he was among the youngest generation. However, as the new bearer, he would go last, taking Adam's place as the one to make atonement for the people. After all the men brought the first fruits of the field and the best of the animals forward, Tubal-Cain followed behind, bringing bundles of grain and beans. "Praise the light," Enoch smiled. "Tubal-Cain has accepted the will of the Ancient One after all." Tubal-Cain might shun the ceremony. Now he was relieved his fears were unfounded. Enoch relaxed and shuffled in his seat again, drumming his fingers against his thigh. Mother Eve would call him next. His fingers stopped mid-tap. Enoch frowned. What is Tubal-Cain doing? Instead of having the men place the offering on the altar, Tubal-Cain was instructing them to place the bundles at the front of the platform. Enoch opened his mouth and was about to stand in protest when the strong heat, the energy that had been with him all along, surged, forcing him to stay in place. Enoch remembered the words, "Watch, listen, speak." So Enoch held his tongue as Tubal-Cain took the bearer's place, his place, at the top of the altar and spoke loudly. Several Neshpanel appeared beside Enoch almost instantly with spears and daggers ready, awaiting orders. Enoch raised his hand and shook his head. Silently, they disappeared back into the crowd, tall with her hands on her hips. Again, Enoch shook his head. No. Great Mother Eve folded her arms, but finally nodded when Enoch didn't budge, and took her seat. "Osa Elia me kuru sevatu." Tubal-Cain shouted using the old tongue of Adam. "Greetings, children of the hidden Father. You are highly favored this sun's sleep. For today the truth has come and the curse will be broken." As soon as those words were spoken, Samjaza and his men appeared on the stage, materializing out of nothingness, blazing bright and illuminating the night as if the sun itself had risen. They surrounded Tubal-Cain with swords raised high toward the heavens. This show of power silenced the murmurs rippling throughout the crowd at Tubal-Cain's unexpected greeting. "My dear friends, some of your leaders, some members of the High Council, do not want you to know this revelation. Some of them want you to remain in bondage. Your new bearer of Enoch," Tubal-Cain said with a sneer, "would rather you chase after Alru the rest of your lives, rather than be redeemed. They know full well the Ancient One has already sent the promised seed. It was revealed to the High Council, yet they choose to keep you in ignorance so they can remain in power." "What? Is this true? What is he talking about? Why haven't we heard this before?" Questions flooded through the families like troubled waters. Enoch felt the heat rising within him, yet he could not move. Great Mother Eve stood again, looking to him for direction. Enoch shook his head. No. This time she did not sit down. Enoch shook his head again. No. Great Mother Eve sat down. Enoch felt a tap on his right shoulder. Dina nudged him. Enoch shook his head. No. Dina sighed and looked straight ahead. She was angry. So was he, but the words came stronger. Watch. Listen. Words came stronger. Watch. Listen. Speak. There would be a time for action, but not now. Enoch bent over in his seat again, so low almost to the ground, praying, Hidden Father, help us. Waves of energy rushed through and around him, holding him in place. Yet something else was happening too. The voice spoke. Watch for those dazzled by the light. Listen for the motive of those who lie. Speak my word, for it is fire. A shout came from the crowd. A young man stood, his back misshapen and curved, as he leaned on his staff. Where is this seed? Tell us how we may have it. Aye, another voice cried. Where is the seed? Another yelled from the center rows. Tell us now, Tubal Khan, someone else shouted. Tubal Khan raised his voice even louder. Fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, dear children, behold. Tubal Khan stretched his arms and faced the Elohim. The seed is before you. Open, you sons of God sent to redeem us. Enoch is not the bearer of the seed. They are. There was no thunderous applause, just stunned silence. Tubal Khan's voice wavered, but when Lamech rose, leaning on his staff, he continued, They are men just like us, yet without sin. They know how to heal instantly. I myself was healed by these good men. When I went in search of the Aru, I was attacked by bloodthirsty wolves in rebellion of the ancient. I suffered many piercing wounds until the blood of life flowed from me. I saw the final darkness coming, the everlasting sleep from which no man returns. The finality of the curse was upon me. Of God found me and saved my life. The virtue of the Ancient One is in them. They have been sent to give it to us. All was quiet. No one spoke. Everyone stared at the brilliant, beautiful men standing before them. Enoch could sense the thoughts of the people now. The one mind was strong upon him now, stronger than it had ever been, even greater than the time when he had outrun some Jaws and his men on horseback. He heard the people thinking, They have bodies like ours, but different. Their faces are like ours, yet superior in beauty. Could this be true? Tubal Khan spoke with passion. Honored ones, listen to me. A union of our people with these holy men is possible. The children of this union would be free from the curse. These men do not get sick and die as we do. No wound can take the life essence from them. Their offspring, our offspring, will live free from pain or death, just as the Ancient One promised. What about Khan with cloudy eyes? Aye, what about us, Tubal Khan? A young man asked, perfect in appearance except for a large scar across his face. Some of us suffer from the curse every day. Be at ease, Tubal Khan said. Open your ears and hear the truth. These men have healing power, hidden knowledge that heals. They have promised to share these truths to all who believe. But you must believe in the power of this union enough to act. What must we do, Tubal Khan? Follow me. Leave this altar. Leave this hidden father you can't see or please. Leave that foolishness behind. The blood of bulls and burning our precious grain and oil will not atone for our sins. No sacrifice will ever be enough. It only makes our bellies ache with hunger. No sacrifice can clean us from the curse. Only a righteous seed can save us. You ask me what to do? I am telling you, leave this altar and follow me. Everyone who wants to be free, altar and follow me. Everyone who wants to be free, finally free, follow me. Enoch felt the heat, the energy surge again. It pushed him forward. Enoch moved through the rows of people packed tightly on the ground, some standing, some sitting. The throngs parted as he approached, giving him a clear path to the platform. All eyes that had been transfixed on Tubal Khan and the shining men now watched him. Children, Enoch said with authority, you have heard from Tubal Khan, now hear me. They recognized his voice as if it were the voice of Adam. All mumbling ceased as Enoch took his rightful place. Although the Ancient One, our hidden Father, cannot be seen, we know his voice. We know his ways. This, Enoch said as he pointed toward the Elohim still standing on the platform, is not his way. How do you know, Enoch? A son of Seth shouted as he thrust his spear in the air. Yes, bearer. Yes, bearer. Another one added from the third row. Why should we ignore the light before our eyes? Listen, Enoch held his hand up, surprised that even some of his own kinsmen would stand against him. If the hidden Father had wanted to redeem us in this way, he could have done so long ago. Ask yourself, why now? The ancient send these men now after Adam's death. Enoch waited until the murmurs died down. I'll tell you why. Our great father Adam would have recognized these men. He would have seen through the deception. Father Adam and Mother Eve were tempted many times by the fallen who tried to entice them to return to the garden, even though the ancient forbade it. They would not have been fooled by mere beauty and power. The fallen can also appear as men of light. Do you not remember our great mother and father once possessed a similar form? Appearances mean nothing. Enoch paced the length of the platform. Since the deception of the serpent, we have only heard the voice of sacrifices made. Our hidden Father requires sacrifice, and he answers by fire. Great Mother Eve has warned us not to be swayed by smooth speech and reasoning. It is the way of the serpent. Why should we listen to Great Mother Eve? A young man from the tribe of Cain shouted. She is to blame. She brought the curse on us. You are one to speak of curses, Zohar. Methuselah's voice was acid. Quiet, Methuselah. Enoch rebuked his firstborn. Respect all elders. Cain has cursed us all with his murder. Methuselah accused the clan leader who sat with the goals on the front row. If Abel had lived, we would have been redeemed long ago. Yeah, it would have been long ago. Methuselah's youngest brother, Danny, jumped and shouted, hopping from one foot to the other with his little wooden sword raised in the air. Enoch's other childlings joined in, chanting, Yeah, long ago, brother. Enoch took hold of his whip and was about to rebuke them too when his wife rushed to the platform and stomped her foot. Some of the people began to laugh. Do something, Dinah yelled at Enoch in front of the crowd. Before he could, Methuselah's head rocked back. The boy yelped in pain. Zohar had thrown a rock. Now a thin trickle of blood dripped down the side of Methuselah's head. Methuselah's comrades in the Nesh Panel immediately dashed through the packed rows separating them from Zohar and his brothers. More shouts, more spears raised. Someone yelled, A life for his blood! Chaos broke out as women hustled their crying children. He burned like fire, yet he was unharmed. Enough! He cried in a thunderous voice above the mayhem. Surprised at the power in Enoch's voice, the people fell silent. Enoch shook off the unfamiliar feeling. He could hear his command echo through the camp. The boys dropped their stones and spears, still huffing, but obedient for now. If you want to know the will of the Ancient One, bring your sacrifice. Enoch confronted Tubal-Cain face to face. The hidden Father will speak and instruct us regarding these Elohim. The people grew still, waiting for Tubal-Cain's response. Tubal-Cain thrust his staff high in the air and shouted, By Adam's blood, I will not be deceived by the foolish traditions of men any longer. I am going to use my grain and my livestock to feed my people. He yelled even louder, Who is with me? At first, no one spoke. Then a lone man walked quietly to the lambs off the altar, hoisted them over his shoulders, and disappeared into the crowd. Do not be deceived, Enoch began. Aye, another man said as he ran toward the altar. I think I can find better use for my meat. He grabbed the carcass of a bull and dragged it away, leaving a trail of blood in his path. Listen, just because a couple of our kinsmen do not. Before Enoch could finish, another man came and took his sacrifice, then another and another. Forgive me, Enoch. A man must do right by his family. The Ancient One knows that. Enoch stared in disbelief. That man was a member of his own tribe. Enoch wanted to yell, scream, to stop them, but he did nothing. Now the presence, the fiery energy that guided him before, held him still. Enoch didn't resist. The heaping piles of grain and the best of the livestock dwindled until it was only about half the size it was before. Finally, the men taking their gifts cleared the platform, leaving only Enoch and Tubal-Cain. Well, bearer, Tubal-Cain said with a smirk. The people have chosen. He called out to the crowd once more. As for the rest of you, when you decide to leave foolish things behind, come to us. The Elohim have made their home with the tribe of Cain. Receive the redemption they offer. Our arms are open. Very well, sons of Adam, Enoch said. Let every man follow his heart. Just remember this. Anyone leaving without partaking of the sacrifice will not be given the alru that heals. A man crooked and bent from the sickness dropped his sack of grain. A few others hesitated too. Tubal-Cain swirled around to face his cousin once more. By Adama's blood, you will not dominate us with your precious alru for truth. We don't need it or you. Hear me, brothers, and hear me well. Tubal-Cain yelled over the murmuring voices. As the defender of the tribe of Cain, taking alru, our new allies can heal better than any alru. Aye, that's telling him, Tubal-Cain, a gruff voice said. Enoch recognized Father Lamech's unmistakable rasp and clenched his whip. Tubal-Cain sauntered off the platform toward Father Lamech, who grinned and patted him on the back. The great shining men followed Tubal-Cain as he led the people away. Enoch desperately wanted to stop them, to yell, to scream, anything to make the people see. But he could do nothing. The power surging through him held him still as his mind raced. What if I'm wrong? Maybe I have been arrogant. I did want as badly as he wanted to defeat me. Enoch opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Mother Eve was glaring at him, furious. He looked away, scanning the crowd. Almost half the people had gone with Tubal-Cain. The remnant stood watching him, waiting. Enoch panicked. A knot rose in his stomach and pounded his insides. Sweat rolled down his brow, even though the night air was cool. He swallowed, trying to ignore the grumbling. What in ancient's name is he doing? Why, he's no bear indeed. Look at how Tubal-Cain has bested him. I tell you, the tribe of Cain has the better end of the rod. Why, I only stayed out of respect for Mother Eve. Without warning, his fear was replaced with anger. Heat burned from his belly and filled his limbs. The knot in his stomach disappeared as quickly as it had come. Enoch tried to speak again. The voice took over. Watch for those dazzled by the light. Listen for the motive of those who lie. Speak. Does anyone else want to leave? Enoch asked boldly. He waited for a response so long the silence was intimidating. Then he continued, I do not dominate anyone. I rule as Father Adam ruled, by seeking the Ancient One in all things. Enoch strode over to the altar, stepping over the bloody mess and stretched out his hand toward it. If I am speaking the truth, may the Ancient One consume. Before Enoch could get the words out, someone screamed. The people fell flat on their faces. Some crouched in fear as the silver streak sliced through the calm night. Crackle, boom! The entire altar was on fire. Even the blood-stained floor surrounding it burst into flames. Enoch jumped back. He swirled around, looking everywhere. He saw Dina's panic-stricken eyes from the first row. The flames had just missed her. Fire surrounded Enoch on all sides, not just around him, but through him as in awe. The fire bubbling up within him all this time was out, yet he was unharmed. Only the sound of sizzling flesh and burning grain could be heard. All the people were prostrate. A thin voice from Enoch's right side broke the silence. May the Ancient One bless Enoch, ruler of Adam's realm. It was Mother Eve. She said it once more, louder this time. A few others joined her. Then all the people began to chant, May the Ancient One bless Enoch, ruler of Adam's realm. Their voices rang louder and louder until the cry of the people roared. In the midst of the flames, amazed, Lieutenant Delmar? Azam's voice was curt. Delmar jumped and then cringed at his superior officer's tone, turning as Azam approached him from his position on the cliff face, just a few lengths behind the altar. Captain Azam, I didn't do it. Azam instinctively reached for his weapon, hidden in his cloak. Listen, Delmar, I know you want to help, but no, really, Captain, I didn't do it. I swear on the name of the Beloved, I did not use the forces. Well, then who? Delmar pointed to Enoch, standing behind him in the flames. Azam circled Enoch, examining him from head to toe. Him? I believe so. Impossible. Humans cannot summon the forces. I know, Captain. Chapter 17. Mark of the Ancient. Enoch gazed out the folds of his tent into the night. The camp was at rest, finally. The scent of the fatty meat and oil lingered in the air. Enoch sighed. He really wanted to be alone, to think, to understand what happened. Dina watched him carefully, though she pretended to be sleeping. He could feel her hesitance. Is she afraid of me now? After the fire had come a sure display of the ancient's favor. Things were different somehow. There were no more questioning looks from Great Mother Eve. No more grumbling after he stepped out of those roaring flames. Even Father Seth spoke to him with reverence. Enoch remembered the honor Soka's words when he had given instructions to begin the distribution of the Alru at first light. Yes, bearer, it is as you say, bearer. He had no fatherly advice to offer as usual. Instead, Father Seth immediately assembled the elders and Medici to make sure the most ailing members of the clans would receive a portion first according to Enoch's wishes. Be at ease, bearer. Even though the tribe of Cain has betrayed us, we are not without means. I will assemble the Neshpanel scouts to discover the methods used by Cain's people near Nod immediately. We will learn how to cultivate Alru, and by the favor of the ancient, we shall prevail. Enoch was glad Father Seth had taken over the task without being asked. For truth, I am in no condition to do anything right now, Enoch muttered to himself. Although he appeared strong and vibrant, he even had the unmistakable glow of the Ancient One earlier. But inside, he felt very weak. From the way Dina is treating me, it's still there. Enoch held out his bronzed arms, shining in the full moon with the light of their own. It was soft and almost imperceptible, but ever present. Enoch grabbed a robe and covered himself. Dina was still pretending to rest. Her eyes were closed, her breathing irregular. Dina? Enoch said. Yes, she said. Enoch, I mean bearer. You may still call me Enoch. He walked over and knelt beside her. We are husband and wife, after all. Enoch peered into her dark brown eyes, searching. Dina returned his gaze for a moment and then quickly looked down. Yes, husband, I mean Enoch. Enoch tried a different approach. I was wanting a drink of the Alru. I'm feeling... Certainly, bearer, I mean Enoch. Before he could finish, Dina had already rushed to her feet, donned a cloak, and was halfway out the door of their tent. Her relief was apparent. Enoch threw off his robe and tossed it to the floor. The night was too warm for it anyway. He plopped down on the cushions where Dina had lain and sat down, hugging his knees into his chest. The euphoria he experienced earlier, while the power of the one mind had surged through him, was gone. Now he just felt tired and alone. He nodded his head, closed his eyes, and sat there for a while, listening to the sounds of the night. Enoch, Enoch said. She stood before him carrying a wooden tray. It was filled with an assortment of fruit, some Aladi cakes, and a large mug of steaming liquid. The aroma of the Alru filled the room. Enoch rubbed his eyes and tried to focus. I must have fallen asleep. He took the mug of Alru from the tray and held it under his nose, inhaling deeply. Just the smell of it makes me better. Dina stood at attention, looking at him expectantly. Thank you, Dina, he said. You have done my heart well this eve. Dina beamed as she backed away slowly. There's no need to leave. Well, Dina edged closer to the door. It's just that Great Mother Eve and the Medici are preparing Alru for the others, as you requested. They really need my help, that is, if you don't mind. No, of course not. Please, join the others. Enoch hid his disappointment with a quick smile. I will see you at Sunsbirth. Dina rushed through the tent door, almost tripping over her cloak as she did so. Enoch frowned at the clumsy movement of his normally graceful wife. Why was she in such a hurry? Then he noticed it. The Alru had replenished him. The room was filled with a soft, golden light. Coming from him. Anami guarded the door tray down beside Enoch. He felt better too. The scent of the Alru reminded him of home. He needed all the reminders he could get, since it looked like he would not be returning any time soon. The general's orders were clear. Observe and record until further notice. Anami stepped aside to avoid the woman's haste. Though he knew she couldn't see, like the sensation of humans rushing through him. He paced back and forth, studying the man bent over the cup of Alru. I do not understand these sons of Adam. He should be elated the Ancient of Days honored him in such a way. A human allowed to summon the forces? A privilege indeed. But there he was, slumping in the corners as if he had been reprimanded. Anami stopped pacing and stood over Enoch. What was that? The man was mumbling gibberish. Oh, great. Now he's talking to himself. His mind is twisted. Such a shame. The strain of using the forces has bent his mind, unless... Anami rushed back to the door, reaching for his bow. Maybe this is some new trick of the fallen. Anami aimed his weapon. Enoch was still muttering behind him, but louder now. Anami peered again into the darkness and poised himself for attack. They must be here somewhere. Enoch is going mad. Anami stiffened. A sharp sensation sent flecks of awareness throughout his frame. Pinpricks of light surged from his being, making him even more brilliant than usual. He knew this. Anami quickly dropped to his knees. My lord, Anami said, bowing low. Magnificent light paused in front of Enoch. The beloved nodded his head toward Anami and raised a finger to his lips. Son of Adam, your petition has been granted. Return to the forest of Avonland, where I will meet you. Anami watched the beloved talk with the man for a while. He could no longer understand what they were saying. They were speaking some language unknown to him. Then the beloved turned to him and smiled before leaving. As he did, he heard the words, "Protect him." Yes, Anami gasped when the aberration in his appearance briefly surfaced again, a visible reminder of his trip through the gate at the Tree of Life. An intense spectrum of every hue imaginable whirled through him, then softened with the beloved's departure. Anami studied Enoch, sleeping soundly on the rupple. The faint golden glow emanating from the human's figure remained. Anami held out his own arms, examining them. Pale pinks, purples, and blues colored his figure in swirls, so subtle he could not tell where one shade ended and the other began. As he moved his limbs about in the moonlight, the colors changed again. This time warm reds, oranges, and golden tones flickered throughout his figure. Why am I altered? Anami stood up slowly and studied his torso and legs this time. They too were affected. It is beautiful, I think, but what does it mean? Will it last? Anami plopped down on a cushion near the man and leaned against the wall. He stared at Enoch, who now looked a little more like the Elohim than a son of Adam. Anami hugged his knees to his chest and sighed as he remembered how the man's wife had run away from him. No, Tafara, wait! Dina called as she ran to catch up. Dina, if you won't go in, I will. Medici Tafara, please. I am sure he doesn't want to be disturbed. How do you know? Have you asked him? Well, no, but I am... Listen, Bara or no Bara, he is still Enoch. Tafara pushed back the folds to Enoch's abode. Soft rays of first light streamed through the room. Stunned, Tafara took a step back. She shielded her eyes with her hand as she approached her cousin. Dina peeked in through the doorway, ignoring Tafara, beckoning her to follow. There was Enoch. He sat with his back to the door, hunched over a large tray. Empty melon rinds, a smattering of seed. Tafara coughed. Well, I see your condition has not affected your appetite. Enoch jumped and swirled around. Tafara squinted. Sorry. Enoch threw on a hooded robe. That's better. Tafara smiled brightly as she lowered her hand. I believe this is yours. Tafara held out Enoch's distinctive blade. What? Enoch stood up quickly and looked down at the empty loop on his waist pack. How did you... You may be the leader of Adam's realm, and you might have the glow of the Ancient One about you, but you still don't know how to hold on to your weapon, cousin. Enoch smiled. At least Tafara is not afraid of me. I might be inclined to teach you if you tell me your secret. Tafara took Enoch's hand into hers and examined it. Where's the light coming from? Do you feel different? Can you call the fire down now? No, Tafara, Enoch laughed. I don't know where the light comes from. It's just there, here. And no, I don't feel any different. Well, at least not now. But last eve I did feel. Dina, since you are closest to the door, Tafara called out sweetly, would you please have a sabasi bring us some ketu? I'm sure your husband would love a cup. Of course, Tafara, Dina said, stepping into the doorway so she could be seen. The curtains fluttered as Dina rushed away. Tafara, Enoch grinned. You shouldn't have. It was obvious she wanted to hear our conversation. Well, Tafara said, picking up the scraps from the floor and loading them onto the empty tray. She should have come in instead of standing over there like a silly ninny. Don't be so harsh with Dina. All women do not have your courage. Well, they should. She is trying, Enoch said softly. I'm sorry, Enoch. It's just all her talk about being afraid made me angry. Do you know she stayed in the tent of the Medici all Sun's sleep? There is simply not enough room for her. I had to move all my things just so she could have a place to sleep. We had long finished our work and we didn't need her. She should have rested in her own tent with her husband. Enoch sighed. Tafara, I do not blame her for being afraid. I am different now. Tafara bit her lower lip and focused on the straps of her sandals. You were saying you felt something last night? She leaned in close to Enoch, whispering, her eyes bright with excitement. Tell me. Anami leaned in too. I'm glad the girl Tafara has come. Now we'll get down to the bottom of this. Anami listened intently as Enoch recounted the events of the evening before. And after the fire came down, it faded. I felt quite myself again, except for this. For truth, I didn't even notice it until I saw how everyone kept staring at me. Even Father Seth treats me as if I were Adam himself. Well, that is something. My father treats everyone like a childling. There is one more thing. Again. You did? Tafara exclaimed. What did he say? I haven't even told Dina yet, but... Just then, Dina came bustling through the door with a large tray. Mugs of steaming liquid, rolls, and an assortment of dried meats jostled precariously as she made her way toward Enoch and Tafara. Enoch, dear, what haven't you told me yet? She asked with a big smile plastered across her face. Tafara, you know you really should be going now. Great Mother Eve has been asking for you. She needs your help with the distribution. Tafara folded her arms. Of course, Medici, Dina. Let me just get a cup of the ketu. Tafara said, reaching for the tray, and I'll be on my way. Tafara stopped, surprised. The last mug was gone. I could have sworn there was another cup. Dina glanced down quickly. I thought I brought enough. No matter then, you can just get more on your way out. Certainly. Tafara pressed her lips together. Enoch, I mean bearer. We'll talk later? Anami grinned as he sipped the rich ketu. This is wonderful. It was good of the girl to have the woman bring this. That Tafara should be trained. Father Seth lets her run as wild as a gazelle, trying to get wisdom from my husband when she should be sitting at her father's feet. She runs with the men, hunting and training with weapons. It's not just what a proper woman does. And she is presumptuous, too, calling you by your first name as if she were... Were what? Enoch asked, frowning. Dina blushed and busied herself straightening the blankets. Just never mind. I think you indulge her too much, Enoch. Enoch smiled. So now I'm Enoch again. Now, Dina, don't let Tafara get to you. She's just strong-willed like Great Mother Eve. Be at ease, wife. I can't tell you about the voice I heard last night if you keep carrying on about Tafara. Of course, husband. Dina dropped the basket of blankets on the floor and sat beside him. The Ancient of Days spoke to me. I must go to Avonlea Forest. I see. Dina frowned. She emptied the basket and began folding the blankets into neat stacks. When will you leave? Well, right away. I see. Dina picked up the blankets once again and turned to leave. I suppose you'll be needing some of your things prepared then. I'll see to it. Dina? Yes. Her answer was sharp as she swung around to face him. I packed my satchel last night. Dina noticed Enoch's worn leather pack stuffed to the brim, sitting by the door. I see. But if you don't mind, Enoch studied her face, puzzled by the coolness he found there. Would you please ask Father Seth and the elders to meet me at the tower? I want to inspect the storehouse before leaving. Certainly, bearer. Father Seth panted as he raced toward the tower, his sword slapped against his back like a whip. He had hardly slept at all last night. All he could think about was protecting those precious leaves, so he'd gone to inspect the vault one more time before the council arrived. It was the least he could do for the new bearer. On point as usual. Father Seth greeted Enoch and the elders as they came up the path. Father Seth stood aside, allowing the elders to enter first. The tower and barracks for the Nesh Panel was crafted from a father tree conifer with long drooping needles, standing about 350 lengths tall and 50 lengths in circumference. The hollowed-out trunk's main entrance was an arched door at the base of the tree. Small cutouts were scattered along its height for watch duty. Thick, long branches were further obscured by an aggressive vine, leaving the storehouse virtually hidden. "Clever," Enoch said. "I might have missed it." Father Seth beamed. "This way to the vault." Ladders built into the walls allowed access to the upper levels. A hollow column stood in the center, and inside it, thick ropes hung from the top to large baskets on the bottom. They climbed the ladders to the upper decks, but Enoch reached the storeroom first. "I see we have easy distribution throughout. There's plenty room for new crops, and it's well lit. Who installed lamps?" There were no lamps. The darkened room was completely illuminated as if the noonday sun sat in the middle. But no sun did this. It was him. Light gushed from his pores brilliantly, just as it had last eve. Not even his dark cloak diminished the effect this time. The elders he revered his whole life were lying on the floor, prostrate. "Please, I realize my appearance is unusual, but I am no one to be worshipped. Get up." Enoch pulled the men to their feet. The air was thick, heady. "We need to get outside," Enoch said, rushing down the ladder. The men looked dazed. "Quickly!" Enoch shouted. Finally, the men followed him down the shaft and out the tower door. Once outside, the men breathed easier. In the bright sun and fresh air, Enoch's strange glow was not so strange. Someone poked him. Father Seth broke the silence. "This light is surely a sign of the ancients' favor. Nothing to be afraid of. Remember, Father Adam and Mother Eve once shined with brilliance too before the exile. Since the Ancient One has chosen Enoch as the bearer, why should he not possess the light the seed will bring?" "I see that I am not the only recipient of an altered appearance." Enoch pointed at his head. "Pardon?" Father Seth said. "Look in the vessel." Enoch passed him a polished reflection. His silver hair was now jet black, so black it was almost blue. "I have not seen the likes of this since I was a childling." Seth laughed. Enoch frowned. "How long were you in the storehouse before we arrived?" "Surely no more than half a time," Seth said. "I feel refreshed myself," Father easily. "Just think of what this means for the tribe of Seth. Anyone who enters the Auru vault could be completely healed from the curse." "Listen." Enoch silenced their excited chatter. "The Auru is a powerful gift, but I need to be sure." "When will you be sure, bearer?" an older man of the Soka asked. "When the Ancient of Days says so, bearer," an older man of the Soka asked. "When the Ancient of Days says so, I have no such word yet." "Yet?" "Bearer, I mean no disrespect, but you are young and strong. Some of us have seen many ages and do not know how many more sun sleeps will come before the curse takes us." The man made for the tower door. Enoch beat him. Truth, another man stood behind him, forming a line. Within moments, the queue wrapped around the tower and down the trail. "Hear me well, sons of Seth." Enoch whistled, and the Nesh Panel materialized from the forest with weapons drawn. "Surely the Hidden Father will keep you well until I return. Please be patient. Do not forget the fruit of that other tree. We are still suffering from its nectar. No one is to stay in the vault for more than half a time, and the door must remain open while you are there. No one is to enter alone." "What if we get sick before you return?" someone asked. "Anyone who brings a sacrifice for the Ancient One should be given a fair portion." "But what about the sons of Cain?" the Nesh Panel pack leader asked. "The Auru is to be given freely to any son of Adam who brings the sacrifice," Enoch said firmly. "If any concerns arise in my absence, Father Seth and the members of the tribunal will rule. I have already spoken to the Medici. They have their instructions." This concludes chapters 14 through 17 of Taken, a metaphysical fantasy novel. If you enjoyed this excerpt, please check out the next chapters of Taken on this YouTube channel. Remember, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love Him. Please share this uplifting read with your friends and get ready to soar. Thank you again for listening, and may the favor of the Ancient One be on you.